Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a non-spoiler book review for All the Light We Cannot See. This is a dual perspective World War II story that follows dual perspectives, so obviously two main characters. One is a young German boy and the other is a young French girl. We follow them in their early childhood up through their early teenage years, and we see the story through a split timeline. So when it first starts out, you are seeing them during the war, you're seeing the consequences of war, and you kind of go backwards and you see them before the war, and you see the typical, somewhat mundane elements of their life, and then how those things start to completely unravel once the war actually gets going. I pretty much never use the word objective when describing the quality of a book because I think almost every element of books is subjective and completely has to do with our own personal feelings about things and preferences, but I just don't know how anybody can feel that this is objectively bad. There are elements of it that I think that might not really appeal to you, and that actually is what happened to me. I loved so much of this book, and then about halfway through to the end, it just didn't fit my fancy, but the writing is phenomenal. And I buddy read this with my husband, and we didn't talk about it until we had both finished reading it. And he is somebody who tends to really enjoy flowery, poetic writing with a lot of symbolism and a lot of metaphors and things like that. And I am somebody who tends to prefer pretty straightforward writing, and both of us were like, it was really good writing. The perfect in-between of not being too flowery, but not being too simplistic. It was really good writing. The writing was phenomenal. I don't know what I'm talking about, so, it could just be a subjective thing as well, but it has won some awards. So I think it is highly regarded. The writing itself is very straightforward at times in that it's so blunt and it doesn't romanticize war, but then at the same time, there are these moments where somebody's emotions or feelings or the things that are transpiring are so symbolic, and sometimes it's just so beautiful and you almost get captivated and swept away in the symbolism elements of it. So I can't really diss anything. Not that I'm trying to, but the writing is just so good, which I really feel is important to say, because if you are the kind of person that just appreciates good writing, you will probably like this. Even if you don't end up liking the story, you will probably like this for that element alone. I can definitely see the pacing and the back and forth with the split timeline not being to everybody's taste. I think for the most part, the split timeline was in the book's favor when it came to engaging the reader. It was for me at least, because you see such a terrible thing happening initially, and then you go back in time and then you see just two young people and their regular day-to-day lives, and then the way in which those things kind of meet, I think was really brilliantly done. I do think that once we got close to the timelines meeting, that it almost got to a point where I just wanted them to go to present day, because it wasn't that it was confusing, but it just kind of was getting to a point where I'm like, okay, we can go. We're really close now. We can just go to present day and I can connect the dots. But otherwise, I think that the timeline split I thought was extremely well done, though I know for some people they just really don't care for that kind of thing. With the pacing itself, the book is not, I would say, really fast moving, but it's not difficult to read. The writing style it's delivered in a way that I think it's very digestible, but still pretty. And the chapters are extremely short, so they feel like scenes in a movie or in a TV show. So it's very easy to get through in that way, but it's not really fast moving. You kind of sit with the characters in their day-to-day lives for a while, and then something will happen, and then things kind of pick up, and the consequences of war are shown, and I guess you could say the stakes are raised, but then things will kind of get better for a while, and then you kind of sit with them a little bit. And I think that this pacing was necessary because it's a pretty tragic story. I mean, war is terrible, and I think what this author did so well is in showing you these somewhat kind of basic elements of life, how much we crave that when things go bad, and how much we don't really appreciate our lives when they are peaceful and they are just kind of simple day-to-day things. And you see that in the characters, especially, I think, in the character of Werner, the boy. It's so tragic. So when you start the story, you have these two characters, and the young girl, she ends up going blind at a very early age, and her perseverance and her determination and her father's patience, all of that is so well done. The relationship between them is so beautiful, and you really care about her, and you see her struggle, but you're like, oh my gosh, she's so inspiring. And Werner, for a while, is just this boy. He's an orphan with his sister, and he just kind of wants something better. His life is likely going to go down a direction that's very similar to a lot of other people, and it's not really the best life, but he's very brilliant, and he just wants a better life. He wants the opportunity to explore things that he wants to learn, and I think that is so, in both of those characters, you see this at an early age, this desire for something. And I think that once the war comes and you see how those desires, they just don't have the opportunity to explore them, and it's really powerful. It's so simple, but when you think about regular life and how all of us have dreams and aspirations, and sometimes we just aspire to something really simple, but even the simplest things end up just being ruined because of other terrible people in the world. It's done so well in that regard. However, there are elements of this book that I wish I had known going in, because I think it would have definitely changed my expectations, and I'm gonna let you know what those are now, because ultimately, while I think there were so many powerful moving moments in this book, I didn't love it. Two biggest things that made it not for me, there's almost a sense of magical realism in this book, which I'll get into in just a sec, and then the ending, which I can't go into too many details without obviously giving away spoilers, but there are things about the ending where if the book had stopped at a certain point, there was a couple points where I'm like, if it had stopped there, I probably would have liked it more. The ending just really kind of was drawn out, and there were things about these two characters and seeing how their lives were connected and intertwined through war. There were elements of that I thought were brilliant. And then after a while, there were some things about it that felt a little forced to me, and the ending was just not, it lasted a long time, and at some point I was like, all right, I think we gotta, there was one point in particular that I was like, right there, that would have been a great ending. I would have loved the not knowing what came next. I would have loved the way that everything kind of came together, and I would have loved if it had ended there, but it didn't. And so I didn't love the ending. And my husband also, who really did enjoy this book, he also felt similarly about the ending. He didn't really care for it, but he still really loved the book, and he kind of just told himself like, I don't love the ending, but I loved the book. And for me, the ending definitely, I hate saying enjoyment, that my enjoyment was dropped slightly, because it just doesn't feel like the right word when describing a story about something so heavy. But that's the word I'm going to use. My enjoyment factor definitely dropped because of how long the ending was. Ultimately, while I didn't love the ending, that's not what made this book not fit my taste. I think if it hadn't been for what I'm going to refer to as magical realism in this book, I don't know if that's the right term for it, but that's what I'm going to call it. If it hadn't been for that, I could have been like, oh, I didn't love the ending, but everything else about this book I loved. But the diamond. So there's a diamond in this book. This isn't a spoiler. It's mentioned in the synopsis. And if anything, I think it should be talked about more, like in the synopsis. I wish they'd made a bigger deal of it, because then I would have gone in with different expectations. So there's a diamond in this story. The museum that our female perspective, her father works at, when the war is happening, they have this really, really rare diamond. There's all these stories about how this diamond is cursed, and that whoever has the diamond will live basically forever. They'll be healed of any ailments, and they'll be in good health, but terrible things will happen to everyone they care about. And so there's all these superstitions around this diamond. And during the war, in order to preserve it and make sure that nothing happens to the things that are kept at the museum, they send several of the employees of the museum, they send them off with, a few of them have fakes, and then one has the real one, and none of them know who has the real one. But the female perspective, her father is like, do I have the real one? Do I have the fake one? I don't know. And then he's kind of starting to think like, oh my gosh, are bad things happening because I have this diamond? I didn't dislike that. I liked this idea of, there's so much symbolism with the diamond, and there's a lot of things that you can take away from what the diamond represents in the story, which I think is something a lot of people really like, and it's up for interpretation, and the metaphor behind it, I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy discussing what did this mean? Did it play a role? Is that kind of something, or is it just all fate? You can't control your life. I think that there's a lot to do with this diamond that people are going to enjoy having discussions about. But there is a huge amount of the story that has to do with the young girl being in danger because people want the diamond. I was just not expecting this diamond to be one of the reasons that one of our perspectives was in danger, because I'm like, it's World War II. She's going to be in danger because it's World War II. But instead it was like, she's in danger because of this diamond. And I wasn't expecting that. And every single time the diamond was playing a role in the story, I was like, oh, okay, we're back to this diamond. And I wish I had known that. I wish that I had gone in knowing that this diamond was going to play such a critical role in the story and in how safe our character is. If I had known that, I think I probably would have gone in just feeling very differently and been like, oh, okay, I'm going to know there's like almost a magical realism element to this book. But it just caught me so off guard, and it was almost jarring for me to have so much of the story rooted in such human, raw emotions and circumstances, and then like this diamond. It was really bizarre for me. So hopefully it won't be bizarre for you, because you'll know going into this book, this diamond is going to be a thing, and it's almost kind of sort of magical realism. I've harped on it for way too long now, so no more diamond talk. All in all, if you are interested in this book, you should pick it up, because it is a really good book. There were just a couple of things that made it not to my taste, but like I said at the beginning, I don't know how people can say objectively it was bad. There are just elements of it that didn't end up working for me, and I can see not working for other people, but it's a very good book. There are so many things done so well in this book, and it's to the point where reading this and then going to pick up anything else, it just made the writing and everything else look so basic, which I told you at the beginning, I like straightforward writing, but it's just like a different level. And I appreciated that about it. The relationships between the characters, the nuance so often was just so good, but didn't love the ending personally. And then the diamond, it was not what I was expecting. Definitely let me know your thoughts on this book. This was kind of the designated buddy read for the month of January 2020. So if you read it alongside us, I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts on it. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed it if you picked it up. If you haven't picked it up and you're planning to, I hope you like it. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.